The echo of humanity's failures, the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine, one of the most devastating conflicts of our time, did not arise out of nowhere. Its roots run deep, tangled in decades of political tension, mistrust, and power struggles. To understand the suffering of today, we must journey back to the seeds of this conflict. In 1991, the Soviet Union fell, and Ukraine emerged as an independent nation. For the first time in centuries, it was free from Moscow's control. But with freedom came fragility. Ukraine became a nation caught between two worlds. On one side, its historical ties to Russia. On the other, its aspirations to join Europe and align with the West. The West saw Ukraine as a gateway to expanding democracy. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, moved eastward, welcoming former Soviet states into its fold. To NATO, it was about securing peace. To Russia, it was a direct threat. Moscow viewed NATO's expansion as an encroachment on its sphere of influence, a tightening noose around its borders. In 2014, the balance tipped. Ukraine's pro-Russian president was ousted during mass protests over a decision to halt a deal with the European Union. Russia saw this as a Western-backed coup. The Kremlin responded swiftly, annexing Crimea and backing separatist movements in eastern Ukraine. A low-grade war simmered for years, but the world underestimated how far the tensions could escalate. Russia's President Vladimir Putin declared that NATO was crossing a red line. The idea of Ukraine joining NATO, a former Soviet state aligning militarily with the West, was unacceptable to Moscow. It wasn't just politics. It was about power, pride, and the fear of losing strategic dominance. On February 24, 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, calling it a special military operation. Moscow claimed it was protecting Russian-speaking populations and ensuring Ukraine wouldn't join NATO. But the reality was far darker. This was a war that has claimed tens of thousands of lives, uprooted millions, and left cities in ashes. Why couldn't this war be prevented? The United States, NATO, and Russia were locked in a geopolitical chess game, but it was the people of Ukraine who paid the price. The West condemned Russia, imposing sanctions and sending aid, but these actions fueled Moscow's narrative that the West was waging an economic war against it. The war in Ukraine isn't just about borders or alliances. It's about the human cost of geopolitical games. It's about families torn apart, dreams shattered, and futures stolen. This war is a stark reminder of what happens when diplomacy fails, when pride and power take precedence over peace. The question remains, will the world's leaders listen to the cries of the innocent and choose dialogue over destruction? Or will this war drag on, consuming more lives in its path? The war in Ukraine began with mistrust and power struggles, but it can end with understanding and compromise. The time for peace is now, because every second lost to war is a lifetime lost for someone. War has no victors, only victims. Let's demand peace.